So, this morning we're going to take on a really easy philosophical topic of what is truth. Fun question, right? There are moments in history when a single question seems to capture the spirit of an entire age, right? What is truth? It's a question we still ask today, isn't it? Still wondering about that because we live in a world where truth often feels very unstable, where people consume entirely different sets of information and come away convinced of entirely different realities, where facts are debated, evidence is dismissed, narratives are shaped less by what is real and more by what we want to believe, right? Many people no longer believe truth is something that is objective, that stands outside of us. Instead, truth has become something flexible, something that can be reshaped, reframed, or reinterpreted depending on who the speaker is, right? Truth becomes less about reality and more about loyalty. Less about what is, and more about what serves our side or our interests. Which makes Pilate's question feel remarkably contemporary. Standing in front of Jesus, he asks, "What is truth?" But what's fascinating about this moment in John's gospel is that Pilate does not ask this question because he's actually searching for truth, right? He's not interested in the truth. He's not a philosopher. He asks it because he no longer believes the truth matters. He's a governor. He is a Roman official charged with one task above all others, and that is to maintain order. If the question of a man who has already decided truth is negotiable. Jerusalem during Passover was a very tense place. The city swelled with pilgrims. National hopes ran high. Memories of past revolts were never far beneath the surface. Pilate's job was simple: keep the peace. Now, Rome had a very particular way of keeping the peace. Rome did not debate their threats. Rome crucified them. Crucifixion was not just an execution, it was a political message. It was Rome's way of saying anyone who might challenge imperial power, this is what happens to those who resist us. So when Jesus is brought before Pilate, the issue is not theology. Rome does not execute people for a theological disagreement. They don't care. The charge is political. King of the Jews. That's language Rome understands. Because in the Roman world, there is only one true authority, and that authority is Caesar. Anyone claiming kingship, anyone gathering followers, proclaiming a new kingdom, could quickly be seen as a threat to imperial power. Pilate is not wrestling with the truth of Jesus' teachings. He doesn't care. He's calculating his risks. He asks questions, he probes the situation, and 3 different times he says, "I find no case against him." Pilate knows Jesus isn't leading an armed revolt. He can see that. But innocence does not always protect someone when empire feels threatened. Truth is not the highest value in Rome, not by a long shot. Stability, power, and control, that is what is important, and that is what, for Pilate, is true. So Pilate asked the question that reveals the deeper logic of empire. What is truth? And I always imagine Pilate saying this with sort of a sardonic sneer, right? What is truth? It's not curiosity, it's dismissal. In the world Pilate inhabits, truth is something that is secondary. It's flexible. It bends to the needs of power. And what matters and what is true is his need to protect Rome. And if one Galilean preacher must die to accomplish that, then that's simply the cost of maintaining power. And if we're honest, we understand that temptation because truth often becomes very inconvenient. Truth disrupts our assumptions. Truth challenges our loyalties. Truth forces us to reconsider things we would rather keep settled. And when that happens, we often look for ways to soften the truth, to reshape the truth, to explain it away. And what makes this scene so striking is that Pilate asked this question while truth is literally standing right in front of him, right? Earlier in John's Gospel, Jesus says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." In other words, truth is not just a collection of ideas. Truth is embodied in the life and the character of Jesus Christ. Which means if we want to understand truth, we look to what Jesus does, how Jesus behaves, how Jesus acts, what Jesus teaches. And what we see in this moment is something completely different from how the world usually defines truth and power. Jesus stands before the machinery of empire without violence. He doesn't threaten. He does not manipulate. He does not rally a crowd. He simply bears witness and says, "My kingdom is not from this world." It's very interesting when he says that my kingdom is not from this world. Right before that, he says, if it was from this world, I'd have an army, right? Because that's how the world's kingdoms operate. I'd have all kinds of military people right here. They'd be fighting you right now. But that's not my kingdom. Because my kingdom doesn't operate this way. The kingdoms of this world are built on power, force, and control. Jesus' kingdom is built on the truth, and it does not operate according to the same rules. Jesus' kingdom is built on truth, and truth in the way of Jesus looks very different than what we are used to. Truth looks like humility rather than domination. Truth looks like mercy rather than revenge. Truth looks like loving enemies rather than destroying them, which is precisely why the world struggles to recognize it. The tragedy of the moment is Pilate never waits for an answer. He asks the question and then turns around and walks away because he is not interested in the answer to that question. The gospel leaves the question hanging in the air. Not just for Pilate, but for us. Because every generation eventually faces the same decision Pilate faced. What do we do when truth stands in front of us, but threatens our comfort, our power, our assumptions, and our allegiances? Do we listen or do we walk away? John's gospel will soon show us what the world does with truth. Truth will be mocked. Truth will be beaten. Truth will be nailed to a cross. Because when truth refuses to serve power, power tries to silence it. But John's gospel also tells us something else. Truth cannot be buried forever. You cannot kill truth forever. It will rise. It will come to the front. That same truth that stood before Pilate will walk out of a tomb 3 days later. And when that happens, the question Pilate asked will finally receive its answer. What is truth? Truth is the life, the love, the self-giving way of Jesus Christ. And everyone who belongs to the truth listens to his voice. With hope in a promised redemption,